When Robert E. Howard first introduced Conan the Barbarian in 1932, he had no idea that he would become a legendary character in the sword and sorcery genre. After the novels, Conan the Barbarian was also adapted into several comic book adaptations, movies, and even television series. The 1982 Conan movie also featured Arnold Schwarzenegger in the lead role of this swordsman who fights evil forces. Across the franchise, Conan has faced several evil entities ranging from witches to thieves and even corrupt rulers, and he has always managed to triumph over them. While Conan has proved himself to be a worthy hero, many of his opponents gave him quite a tough time, and today we will explore every single one of these villains. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin!
Purging is at last at hand. The day of doom is here.
Thulsa Doom. First appearing in the Cole stories written by Robert E. Howard, Thulsa Doom was a powerful wizard who had often stirred up trouble for Cole and Conan the Barbarian. Thulsa's physical appearance resembled a skeleton, and he also had a skull-like face and eye sockets that appeared to be on fire. He was an invulnerable wizard who could not be destroyed by using regular human weapons. Thulsa was also capable of performing magic, illusions, and even traveling across dimensions, and he was the leader of an unnamed snake cult in the 1982 Conan the Barbarian film. He was also adept at shape-shifting and was quite an authoritative figure who could command an entire cult to follow his orders. He was often known for impersonating others, and he was also skilled at sword fights. Thulsa initially crossed paths with Conan when his men raided Conan's village and even caused his parents' death. Conan was then taken to the Wheel of Pain and forced into slavery, and Conan swore that he would grow up and take his revenge against Thulsa Doom. After growing up, the two of them faced each other when Conan broke into the Tower of the Serpent and even killed Thulsa Doom's pet snake. Throughout the course of the movie, the two of them kept clashing with each other, and things finally get serious at the movie's end when Thulsa gathers his followers at the temple on the Mountain of Power. During this scene, Thulsa even manages to hypnotize Conan with his voice, but the barbarian hero soon snaps out of it after remembering that his mother also died the same way. In the end, Conan decapitates Thulsa Doom's head from his body and even gets rid of his cult. The Changeling. The Changeling was an alien from a distant planet who had escaped to Earth after violating the laws of his home planet. However, he soon realized that he could not breathe in the air, and he used a device that allowed him to take the form of any human by killing or weakening them. After killing War's Beldok, the Changeling assumed his appearance, but he was soon attacked by Zereg and his gang. Zereg even stole Changeling's gemstone, and that is when this alien being first came across Conan. Posing as War's Beldok, the Changeling asked Conan for help, and the two traveled together in search of Zereg. On their way, they even faced a few ghouls, but the Changeling's alien appearance scared them away. Conan also saved the Changeling's life when they encountered a group of cannibals, and they finally reached Zereg and retrieved the stolen gemstone. After Changeling gets his gemstone back, he betrays Conan and even tries to steal his appearance after attacking him. While the alien gained Conan's protoplasmic form, Conan was on the verge of dying when a group of Zingaran soldiers came across the Changeling. These soldiers were asked to kill Conan, and they assumed that the Changeling was the real Conan and decided to execute him. While this marked the end of Changeling's adventures on Earth, Conan got his life force back and soon recovered from the incident. Queen Teramis. Queen Teramis was the ruler of the city of Shadazar, and she was also a known worshipper of the dreaming god Dagoth. Teramis was the main antagonist of the 1984 film Conan the Destroyer, where her character was portrayed by Sarah Douglas. In this movie, she intends to bring Dagoth back to life by performing a ritual involving the horn of Dagoth and the sacrifice of her teenage niece, Jenna. Teramis recruited Conan to obtain the horn, and she also offered to bring his dead lover, Valeria, back to life if he succeeded in his mission. Conan soon embarked on his mission, and Teramis sent her chief guard, Bombata, to spy on him and Jenna. She even asked Bombata to kill Conan once he had secured the horn of Dagoth, and she even sent some more of her men to sabotage their mission. Eventually, they found the Horn of Daggeth, and they were at the altar of a temple that had a huge Daggeth statue. Finally, one of Conan's men realized that the temple's walls were inscribed with secret messages from the scrolls of Skelos that would bring Daggeth back to life if they placed the horn with the statue. Meanwhile, Bombata also stole the horn and even took Jenna along with him as he traveled back to Shadowzar. Conan realized that Jenna was also given a drink that would make her obey Queen Taramis' commands, and he decided to save her and also teach Taramis a lesson. Conan and his friends returned to the palace and killed Bombata, but they were horrified to learn that Taramis had already started the ritual. Conan managed to save Princess Jenna's life, but Daggeth came back to life and killed Taramis by impaling her with his horn. Conan got rid of Daggeth and also ensured that Jenna was rightfully crowned as the Queen of Shadowzar before taking his leave. Zath, the Spider God. Zath was one of the most famous Zamoran gods, and he was also known as the Spider God of the Yezud. Zath even had an entire cult of followers who were of the view that they must serve this great god and also abstain from worldly pleasures such as alcohol or intimacy. The priests and the laymen who served at Zath's temple were also expected to follow these rules, and they also worshipped a huge statue of Zath at the Temple of Yezud. There were also rumors about huge caverns beneath the temple where these priests would feed cattle or human remains to spiders in order to please their spider god. Eventually, Conan also faced Zath in the novel Conan and the Spider God, and he even managed to kill Zath and end his reign of terror. In this story arc, Conan travels to the kingdom of Zamora when he learns that the Queen of Tehran, Jamila, was kidnapped by Zath's devotees. He then traveled to Yezud to find the queen, and came across the Temple of Yezud, where he finally faced the Spider God and killed him. Zath symbolized darkness, spiders, and even poison, and most of the priests at his temple were evil men and known assassins who posed a danger to society. Akivasha. Akivasha appeared in Robert E. Howard's Conan novels, and she was most famously known for her role in stories such as The Sorrow of Akivasha, The Hour of the Dragon, and so on. Her origin stories remain a mystery, but she was essentially a teenage Stygian princess who went to great lengths to retain her beauty and avoid getting old. She finally sought the dark gods in an attempt to gain immortality and found a way to stay young by feeding on the blood of others. She came across Conan in the novel The Hour of the Dragon when Conan traveled to the Temple of Set in search of the heart of Ahriman. Akivasha seemed helpful at first, and she even offered to escort him to the sorcerer Thutothemes, who possessed the heart. Conan soon realized that Akivasha was only luring him to her chambers, and she even tried to seduce him in her burial chambers. She intended to make him her companion, and she almost succeeded when Conan snapped out of it and rejected her. He soon escaped her chambers and also finally discovered the heart of Ahriman, which enabled him to summon an ancient sorcerer that guided him away from Akivasha and other strange entities. Akivasha also appeared in several other stories, such as Kull the Conqueror, Return of Akivasha, and so on. And she was quite a deceptive villain who seemed harmless but was clearly wicked. Totham. Totham was an extremely powerful Stygian sorcerer who used spells and rituals in order to exert control over animals. He especially used his spells on snakes and insects, and he also had the ability to infect others with his venom and ensure that they died a painful death. He was also known for weaponizing his opponent's weaknesses, and he was a skilled strategist who laid out elaborate traps for his victims. He also possessed the Black Ring of Set, which enabled him to perform magic and exert his power. Totham worshipped the serpent god, Set, and he never directly faced Conan. In fact, they always crossed paths unintentionally, and Conan once even made things easy for Totham by getting rid of a river priest who was threatening Totham's power. Eventually, the writers decided to depict Totham as Conan's sworn enemy, and he soon became a recurring character in several Conan stories, Marvel Comics, and even film series. Kulan Gath. Kulan Gath is a deadly sorcerer who has the ability to warp reality and manipulate others, and he has been a significant villain in Conan the Barbarian series as well as the Red Sonja series. Kulan was quite a cunning strategist who could manipulate almost anyone into following his orders, and he could also take the form of a ghost in order to possess other beings. Kulan Gath also appeared in the Marvel Universe at some point, but his first appearance was in an issue of Conan the Barbarian in 1975. At this time, he was married to the witch Raziel Gloth, and his main aim was to steal the power of Shumagorath. He did manage to succeed in this mission, but he was soon killed off. Kulan was a godlike entity who later managed to revive himself, and he also went up against Conan as well as Red Sonja. Eventually, Shumagorath killed Kulan, as well as his wife, and this character was wiped off the series until he later appeared in the modern world, where he fought against the likes of Spider-Man and Venom. Bombata. Bombata was the chief guard of the Queen Taramis of Shadazar, and he was one of the main villains of the 1984 film Conan the Destroyer. As the captain of Taramis's elite guard, Bombata was also tasked with the mission of taking care of Princess Jenna on their mission to find the Horn of Dagoth. As we went through earlier, Queen Taramis had secretly ordered Bombata to kill Conan's crew once they located the horn, but his initial attack was a failure. When Conan started getting suspicious of Bombata's intentions, the warrior claimed that his men were actually acting against his orders, and he then captured Jenna after she found the horn. Bombata succeeded in escaping with Jenna and the horn, and he traveled back to Shadazar while Conan chased after him. He was eventually killed off in a brutal fight with Conan, wherein the barbarian stabbed Bombata in the stomach. Bombata was famously portrayed by Wilt Chamberlain in the film, and he also made an appearance in Robert E. Howard's original works, wherein he was one of Imbaleo's black mercenaries. Rexor. Rexor was one of the primary antagonists of the 1982 Conan the Barbarian film, where his character was portrayed by Ben Davison. He was a high priest that worked with Thulsa Doom, and he had worked alongside Thorgrim and Thulsa Doom when they invaded Conan's village and even killed his parents. Rexor was later one of the priests who managed the cult of Set that was responsible for sacrificing young women in the city of Shadazar. Finally, Conan interrupted this sick ritual and also stole the Eye of the Serpent, which was considered to be one of the most treasured artifacts in the cult. Conan escaped with Valeria and Subutai, while Rexor approached King Osric and reported the incident to him. He then also visited Thulsa Doom's base and told him that Conan had attacked the temple and stolen the Eye of the Serpent. Rexor later worked alongside Thorgrim to locate Conan and bring him to Thulsa Doom while Conan was on a mission to rescue King Osric's daughter. Rexor and Conan also engaged in one-on-one combat, and the barbarian warrior easily defeated Rexor. While Rexor survived this fight within an inch of his life, he later tried to face Conan again, but this time he was killed off by him. Thorgrim. Along with Rexor, Thorgrim was one of the many followers of Thulsa Doom who were involved in Conan's parents' death and the destruction of his village. After raiding his village and also coercing the young kids into slavery, Thorgrim retired from his life and became one of the snakesmen in Thulsa Doom's evil cult of Set. While Thulsa Doom continued to build his cult, he asked Thorgrim to accompany Rexor to find Conan and crucify him on the Tree of Woe. However, Conan managed to escape and later found the truth about Thulsa's cult. While Conan and his friends decided to fight Doom and destroy his cult, he ended up facing Thorgrim and also had a fight with him. Thorgrim used a huge hammer to attack Conan, but the barbarian warrior managed to escape. At the end of the 1982 Conan the Barbarian film, Thorgrim once again tried to kill Conan by bashing his helmet with a hammer, but this plan backfired on him and unleashed a booby trap that actually killed Thorgrim instead. Monster of the Monoliths. Also known as the God with No Name, the Monster of the Monoliths used to rule over Earth in the pre-cataclysmic era. It was considered to be a powerful entity worshipped by the Lemurians, and it was even linked with the Black Monoliths, who were worshipped by an ancient fertility cult. In the Hyborian era, the Lemurians became the Hyrcanians, who started worshipping the living Tarim. However, the God with No Name was still remembered by many, and Conan was once sent on a mission to accompany Queen Melisandre to her father's city. On their way, Queen Melisandre handed Conan an armlet with some peculiar runes inscribed on it, and even assured him that the armlet would protect him. She also asked the entourage to stop the Black Monoliths of Zuflaton and perform a ritual in the name of the God with No Name, while Justin, the blind hermit, warned them that they might end up summoning the Monster of the Monoliths. The Queen's soldiers stabbed him and went ahead with the ritual. The monster was soon summoned, and it had a toad-like appearance with green skin and yellow eyes. It soon attacked Conan, who realized that the armlet was attracting the creature's attention. Conan threw the armlet at one of his accomplices, and the Monster of the Monolith soon went after the armlet and disappeared after acquiring it. Shumagorath. Shumagorath was considered to be one of the Great Old Ones, and he was an ancient god who arrived on Earth millions of years ago. He had even created the entity known as Quaggoth to serve him, and he was eventually trapped inside a mountain during the pre-cataclysmic age. During the Hyborian era, Kulan-Goth and the Queen of Hyperborea, Vamatar, were at war with each other when Vamatar finally revealed she had access to the iron-bound books left behind by Shumagorath. Since Shumagorath was extremely powerful, Kulan-Goth and Vamatar joined hands to release him and use his power for their own benefit. They traveled to Mount Crom in an attempt to release Gorath, but they were soon defeated when Crom arranged for some lightning to fall on them. It was assumed that the two of them died on Mount Crom, and the books of Shumagorath were also buried there. Around 100 years later, Vamatar resurfaced and even ended up in a fight with Conan the Barbarian. Conan also received visions of Shumagorath, and he was eventually led to Mount Crom, where Shumagorath took over Conan's companion, Hob, and used him to free himself from his mountain prison. Shumagorath soon destroyed Vamatar and Kulan-Goth, who had been united again. After getting rid of them, Shumagorath requested Conan to side with him, while the barbarian warrior intended to destroy his books and trap him once again. Eventually, Conan threw the books upwards into the sky during a storm and ensured they would reach Crom. After receiving the books, Crom used his power to seal Shumagorath in his home dimension for centuries to come. While Conan was never directly involved with Shumagorath, he did realize that his presence would be a danger to them, and he soon eliminated this threat with help from Crom. Jurgul-Zod. Jurgul-Zod was an elder god who primarily appeared as a villain in Conan's life during his adventures set in the Marvel Universe. Jurgul-Zod ruled an entire dimension and had an army of demons to assist him in his fights against Conan. Jurgul was considered to be a dark lord who thrived in unpleasant environments, and he also tried to spread despair and evil by any means. He also had a temple on the hills of Samaria, and he wished to turn Conan into his slave and then use him to take control over Earth. He also sent his follower, Cleolanth, to lure Conan into traveling to his ruined temple and then retrieving a blade that would consume his soul and turn him into a slave. Cleolanth was an extremely powerful being on her own, and she was an immortal being who could project energy beams with her eyes and destroy almost everything that crossed her path. However, Jurgul-Zod's grand plan was a colossal failure, as Cleolanth soon fell in love with Conan after meeting him. She decided to get rid of the Dark Blade in order to ensure Conan's safety, and a huge threat was eliminated. Sathogua. Sathogua is a supernatural creature who was part of the Cthulhu mythos before appearing in Conan the Barbarian series. This monstrous being used to reside on Saturn for a long period of time until he got bored and decided to travel to Earth. He also allied with the elder god Set, who created a shrine in Sathogua's name and even entrusted Cobra Crown with the responsibility of guarding this shrine. In a comic named Savage Sword of Conan, Conan ended up coming across this shrine, where Sathogua's idol sensed his presence and soon came to life. Sathogua immediately leapt upon Conan's unsuspecting body and started attacking him, while the barbarian warrior realized that his opponent was much stronger than him. Conan's blade was also useless in cutting through Sathogua's skin, and he soon decided that the best way to tackle this situation would be by escaping. Conan soon ran away from the shrine and found himself on the edge of a cliff, while Sathogua soon followed his trail and almost captured him. At the last moment, Conan jumped off the cliff and somehow survived the fall by landing in the water body below the cliff. On the other hand, Sathogua landed in the jagged coral reefs surrounding the water, and the impact of the fall shattered his stone body. Queen Leora. Queen Leora was the queen of Ophiria, and she even ruled over an entire army of Amazons in the comic series Conan the King. She was known for torturing and threatening others and was typically dressed in capes, spikes, or even black leather outfits. Leora's army had also allied with King Xanthaus and King Tarascus, who had intentions to take over Conan's kingdom, Tarantia. Leora also joined hands with the two kings as they hired a sorcerer named Crassus to defeat Conan, and she would even threaten Crassus's life whenever things didn't go according to plan. After allying with Xanthaus, Queen Leora even seduced him and brought him under her control so that she could take the lead in the movement. During their fights with Conan's kingdom, both Tarascus and Xanthaus ended up dying, and Queen Leora then decided to join hands with Mage Kaliostos and King Braxaltar. They also devised a plan to kidnap Conan's son, Conan, and drug him into falling for Queen Leora. However, their plan did not work for long, as Conan's friends soon kidnapped Leora instead. Eventually, Queen Leora also attempted to kill Conan's daughter and grandchild, but instead, Leora was thwarted and killed off during this incident. Yara. Yara was a fearsome sorcerer priest in the city of Zamora, and he resided at the Tower of the Elephant. Yara was an apprentice of the elephant-headed being known as Yag-Kosha, who had traveled to Earth from the planet of Yag. Yara soon started learning magic under Yag-Kosha's watchful eye, who only taught him white magic and refused to reveal the secrets of dark magic. Yara then decided to imprison Yag-Kosha at his tower, and he would even torture this alien entity in the hopes that he would finally give up and reveal his magical secrets. Yara faced Conan when the barbarian warrior broke into his tower and came across Yag-Kosha, who asked for help in defeating Yara and freeing himself. Conan agreed to help Yag-Kosha, who then used his own blood to power a jewel known as the Heart of the Elephant. Conan even helped Yag-Kosha to present this gift to Yara, who was instantly trapped inside the jewel. While Yara was extremely feared even by the rulers of Zamora, Conan indirectly defeated him with some help from Yag-Kosha. While Yara has not appeared in the movies, he was one of the main villains in the 2003 novel, The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian, where he appeared in the chapter The Tower of the Elephant. Constantius the Falcon. Constantius the Falcon was one of the antagonists in the Conan story, A Witch Shall Be Born, where he was introduced as the leader of a group of mercenaries. The witch named Salome had specifically decided to recruit him to lead these men because of his notorious reputation and lack of morals. In this story, Salome frees Constantius from the dungeons and then teams up with him to replace Queen Teramis of Shem, who is revealed to be Salome's twin sister. Constantius even abuses the queen while Salome encourages him to tame her, and the two of them soon spread chaos all over Queen Teramis's kingdom. Constantius's army abuses the citizens and threatens to kill them if they do not agree to be their slaves. In these conditions, Conan somehow realizes that the real queen had been replaced, and Constantius then decides to get rid of Conan. He captures the barbarian warrior and even crucifies him in a faraway desert. While Constantius hoped that the vultures would feed on Conan's body and get rid of him, Conan somehow manages to escape this fate and frees himself. Eventually, Conan leads an army against a fight with Constantius's forces and emerges victorious in this battle. Conan later captures Constantius and crucifies him at the same spot where the villain had earlier tried to crucify him. Thog the Demon. Thog the Demon was a terrifying entity created by Robert E. Howard, who introduced him in his story, The Slithering Shadow. He had a toad-like face as well as sharp green eyes, and he also had strange tentacles instead of regular limbs. Thog also had the ability to shapeshift into a corporeal shadow form, and he was quite a resilient demon who could survive most attacks. Even Conan's sword had no impact on his body, and Thog is even described as the god of Zuthal at times. He typically roamed around in Zuthal in his shadow form and consumed any being that crossed his path. The citizens of Zuthal even worshipped him and believed that they should not fight back and offer themselves as sacrifices if necessary. Thog once came across Conan, who tried to fight him with his blade. However, the demonic entity survived multiple blade attacks, and Conan then pushed him into a chasm. It is still unclear if Thog died as a result of this, but there is a good chance that he may have survived the fall. Tak. Tak was one of the strongest entities that had ever fought against Conan, and he belonged to a strange species that was half human and half ape. He resided in the mountains of Zamora, and Tak was even captured by Nabonidus, who treated him like a servant and a pet. While Tak was half ape, he had the intelligence of a human and was also quite a devious being. Tak eventually got tired of working under Nabonidus and started acting rebellious towards him. He later took control of Nabonidus's house systems and used them to trap and assassinate Nabonidus as his enemies. Eventually, Conan ended up coming across Nabonidus and Tak. He killed Tak after a long, vicious battle, and Conan later commented on how he viewed Tak as a strong man. The Devourer of Souls, aka Rawl. Rawl, also known as the Devourer of Souls, was an ancient god with a huge cult following during the Hyborian era. While Conan tried his best to subdue the cult's activities, they somehow managed to summon him. However, they ended up making a mistake, and they also summoned the Destroyer of Worlds as an accident. Rawl then realized that the Destroyer of Worlds might target his dimension next, so he fed on the souls of his cult and gained enough power to fight the Destroyer of Worlds. The Devourer of Souls was essentially a god of death, and he later even joined hands with Thulsa Doom. Thulsa Doom later teamed up with Zuthal after he realized that Rawl needed to be stopped, and they tried to find ways to kill him. However, both of them failed in their plan, and Conan finally came across Rawl while the ancient god was wielding the sword of the Elder Gods. The two ended up in a duel, and Conan finally managed to kill him in his demonic form. However, the human form of Rawl somehow survived and even managed to befriend Zuthal, who went on many adventures with him. Rawl was not a human being, but he could take the form of a 10-feet-tall humanoid who wore a winged helmet and a dark cloak. Rawl had the inherent ability to turn humans into worms and then consume them, and he later became even more powerful after gaining the powers of the Elder Gods. This also enabled him to grow to the size of a mountain and gain enhanced strengths among other abilities. Zaltutun. Zaltutun is an evil wizard who first appeared in Robert E. Howard's story, The Hour of the Dragon. He was introduced as an ancient wizard that had been resurrected, and he stirred up quite some trouble while Conan tried to retrieve the heart of Ahriman in order to defeat him. Zaltutun was one of the trickiest villains that Conan ever had to face, and he was also extremely skilled in combat. When the two of them confronted each other, Zaltutun effortlessly brushed him aside as if he were getting rid of a fly, and Conan soon fell unconscious. Zaltutun was also a sorcerer with a lot of magical knowledge, and he also guarded the heart of Ahriman, which gave him several powers, such as the ability to cause disasters like floods, avalanches, or even plagues. When an ancient shaman stole his heart, Zaltutun escaped to Stygia in ancient times, but the Stygian priests of Set found him and even poisoned and mummified him. He was later resurrected by a group that wished to overthrow King Conan of Aquileia, but another priest later used the heart of Ahriman to return him to his mummy form. The Scarlet Personage. The Scarlet Personage was a fearful specter that embodied the fear of death in itself, and it often took the form of a humanoid male named Braca. Braca was supposedly a blind ferryman who wore a robe that hid all of its supernatural features, while the Scarlet Personage had a rotting red skull that would terrify most humans. It also had several supernatural powers, and it derived strength from its opponent's feelings of fear and horror. It also had the ability to create illusions and enter people's nightmares, and it had achieved near omnipotence. The entity once haunted Conan and took him to a ghostly realm full of damned souls. Conan learned that these souls belonged to several people who had tried and failed to defeat the Scarlet Personage, and he still tried to fight him. The two even engaged in combat, and Conan soon realized that he was trying to fight death itself after the entity revealed its rotten skull. While most beings lose their minds after facing death, Conan kept his cool and even got his hands on the demon's sword, which then vanquished him. He later came across the Scarlet Personage once again when it took the form of Braca, and Conan then simply kicked him overboard and got rid of him again. Of course, the Scarlet Personage cannot be easily defeated, and it soon stirs up a storm that causes Conan to fall off his boat. While Conan somehow survived the rough sea and returned to safety, the Scarlet Personage continued to roam freely and haunt more souls. Ishiti. Ishiti was an offspring of the serpent god Set, but her history has not yet been explored. She first came into the picture when a wizard named Echelon contacted her to rescue his daughter, Pelagia. Pelagia was romantically involved with a boy named Ranj, who was murdered, and the local villagers had hired Conan to find Pelagia as they suspected that she was to be blamed for Ranj's death. When Esha contacted Ishiti and asked for help, Ishiti used her powers to freeze time and find Pelagia. However, any being with venom in their body would be able to move even during the time freeze, and it so happened that Conan and his horse were also bitten by a viper just before Ishita froze time. Esha then encountered Conan and offered an antidote to the viper venom in return for his help in saving Pelagia's life. While Conan helped them rescue Pelagia, Esha later refused to cure him and even revealed that he had killed Ranj. Pelagia was enraged to learn that her father was responsible for her lover's murder, and she then worked with Conan to destroy him. Later, Pelagia and Conan worked together to attain the amulet of Set's power, while Pelagia's relatives hoped to sacrifice her at Set's altar. While Conan and Pelagia tried to escape, Ishiti used her powers to block the entrance with a coil. Ishiti even attacked Conan with a strange fire that turned him into a snake demon, and Conan later defeated her by climbing to the top of the crypt and then jumping straight into her mouth. He then cut Ishiti's body from the insiders in order to free himself and also killed her in this process. Numiditis. Initially, Numiditis was introduced as a tyrannical king who ruled over Aquilonia until Conan put him in his place and overthrew his empire. After killing Numiditas, the citizens initially hailed Conan as their liberator, but they soon turned on him and started worshipping their dead king instead. They even put a statue of Numiditas in the Temple of Mitra and painted him as a saintly king who was killed by the barbarian while their royal minstrels spread propaganda songs against Conan. However, Conan did what he had to do to ensure that Numiditas could no longer exploit his citizens. In a later story, Robert E. Howard changed his name from Numiditas to Namiditas and also stated that Conan had strangled him to death on his throne during his civil strife in Aquilonia. Harpagus. Harpagus was the leader of the legions of Yezud and Aranjan, and he worshipped the spider god Zath. He also wore a spider ring that allowed him to mesmerize and control others, and he later gained the ability to transform himself into a gigantic spider. He also produced venom that could kill any human in a matter of seconds, and he had some magical powers. Harpagus once encountered Conan while he was on his way to capture Jamila, and he used his powers to erase Conan's memories. Conan later sought Kushad's help to regain his memory, and he also visited Rubada to borrow some magical dust. He then visited Harpagus and used the magical dust to erase his memory, and Harpagus later tried to force himself on Rubada. Rubada defended herself by hurling all her magical dust supply at Harpagus, which led him to lose his memory for several weeks. Harpagus disappeared from the picture for some time, but he later reappeared and even sent Heliana to capture Conan. While Conan managed to escape Heliana's traps, Harpagus's priests captured him and took him to their leader. Harpagus then injected Conan with the Black Lotus, but Heliana later switched sides and cured Conan with the help of the White Lotus. Conan ended up fighting Harpagus in his spider form, and he managed to defeat him with some help from Heliana. Karam Akkad. Karam Akkad was the high priest of Taram and developed quite an obsession with the mirrors of Tuzan Thun, and he then decided to confront Conan on his own. He asked Chumbala Bey to locate Conan and bring him to him, and he later forced Conan to look into a mirror as well. When Conan looked into the mirror, a strange tentacled monster jumped out of it, and Conan was quite taken aback by this entity. However, he then defeated this monster with some help from Chumbala Bey and confronted Karam Akkad. Karam Akkad had also seen images of Conan with a lion, eagle, and serpent hovering over him in the mirrors, and he then saw Conan in person and realized that his sword had an eagle on it and that his shield was held in place with snakeskin straps. He saw this as a sign and even wondered what the lion symbolized, while Conan killed him and got rid of him for once and all. Karam Akkad briefly appeared in 6 issues of Conan the Barbarian stories in 1972. Dagoth. Dagoth, also known as the Dreaming God, was the primary antagonist of the 1984 film Conan the Destroyer. He was worshipped by the kingdom of Shadazar and their queen Taramis, who was determined to bring Dagoth back to life. During a battle with the other gods, Dagoth's source of power, a jeweled horn, was broken off, and his body was turned to stone, which took the form of a human male. This human version of Dagoth had a hole in his forehead where his horn was supposed to be, and this statue was stored in Queen Taramis's palace. Taramis was determined to locate the jeweled horn so that she could fit it into the statue and ensure that Dagoth returned to life. But the ritual also involved the sacrifice of a virgin girl. While Taramis decided to sacrifice her niece, Princess Jenna, she even tricked Conan into finding the jeweled horn. Finally, she proceeded with the ritual during the film's climax while Conan tried to put an end to it. The barbarian warrior managed to save Princess Jenna's life, but Taramis managed to bring Dagoth to life. And as soon as she returned to life, he took the form of a gigantic beast and killed Taramis with his horn. Conan and his friends had to team up to stop him before he killed more people, while Dagoth started summoning lightning to destroy the palace. Finally, Conan realized that Dagoth's life was dependent on his horn, and he tore the horn from his forehead and weakened him considerably. Once Dagoth was in a weak state, Conan stabbed him with a sword and finally killed him. The Corvidae. The Corvidae, also known as Aneve and Lila, were sisters who appeared as villains in the Wonder Woman Conan crossover series in 2017. They were interdimensional creatures who would go around the universe and stir up trouble between other warriors for their amusement, and they even collected relics from these fights for their own pleasure. The Corvidae once decided to pit Wonder Woman and Conan against each other, and they even decided to get rid of Wonder Woman's demigod powers for fun. However, they did not expect that Wonder Woman and Conan would actually get along with each other, and the Corvidae were so annoyed by this that they decided to kill an entire village. However, the Amazons soon encountered Conan's world to rescue Wonder Woman and attack the two sisters. Conan and Wonder Woman later paired up to kill them. The Corvidae were mystical creatures, and there is a good chance that they might return, but so far, they have not stirred up any more trouble for mortals. They were pretty sadistic entities with near-divine power, and they were responsible for several fights among powerful warriors. Graven. Graven was the primary antagonist of the Conan video game that was released in 2007, and he was a powerful sorcerer who desired to take control over the entire world. He was also terrified of death and went to great lengths to attain immortality. Graven had also imprisoned several gods within his body, and he blamed all his actions on those gods who were supposedly forcing him to act in inhumane ways. He was essentially introduced as a complete psychopath, but he was also a powerful being who had the ability to absorb gods and their powers for his own benefit. He also could shapeshift, create an army of minions made out of a black substance, and also engage in physical combat. Graven used his power to create a curse known as the Black Death that would turn any human into a bloodthirsty killer. He later sought his daughter Akana and hoped to perform a ritual and sacrifice her to attain immortality. He was later trapped inside a statue, but Conan accidentally freed him and unleashed his terror upon the world. Graven successfully captured Akana, and Conan went after him and killed him by stabbing him in the chest with his sword. He also managed to free all the gods trapped within his body, who then punished Graven by sentencing him to eternal torture in a distant realm. Zucala. Zucala was introduced as a sorcerer who claimed to be even older than Atlantis, and he allegedly could not die. He wore a mask that covered his entire face and also gave him his powers, and he also had a daughter named Zephyra. He also had a wide range of powers, such as the ability to summon demons, create disintegration blasts, turn swords into live serpents, and so on. In the Hyborian era, Zucala forced his rule upon a village called Zamora, and he made them pay heavy taxes in the form of gold until Conan arrived at the village. While Conan went to Zucala's lair to deal with him, he ran into Zephyra, who instantly fell in love with him and also tried to subdue him. Zucala later ordered Zephyra to rip Conan apart, but she refused to do so, and Zucala then summoned a demon to kill her and Conan both. When the demon defeated Zephyra, Zucala decided to banish him, and he threatened Conan before finally leaving with his daughter. Later on, Zephyra and Zucala settled down in Koth and started serving under Lord Erikin and the Lords of Law. Eventually, Conan arrived in Koth and came across Zephyra again, but she soon died after being unable to survive Lord Erikin's power. Conan returned her body to Zucala, who eventually started blaming Conan for his daughter's death. 8 years later, Zucala and Conan later clashed once again after the late priest of Caranthus stole Zucala's powers and replaced him. Zucala asked for Conan's help in defeating Caranthus, but Conan sensed that he had bad intentions and beheaded him. Lord Pumpkin. Lord Pumpkin is a mystical supervillain who was first introduced under Malibu Comics, but he later branched out to several other universes as well, such as Ghost Rider, Man-Thing, and the Conan series. He originated in one of the realms within the cosmic artifact known as the God Wheel. Lord Pumpkin was essentially created by a wizard who wanted him to serve under a medieval prince and also act as a friend to him. However, Lord Pumpkin found the prince annoying, and he soon killed him and overthrew his entire kingdom. He then set out to conquer other kingdoms and even started going by the name Lord Pumpkin. Across his many adventures, Lord Pumpkin even came across Conan as he stepped foot into the Hyborian era, and he was quite a strange being. He also had a carved pumpkin instead of a regular head and the body of a scarecrow instead of a human body. He was also an immortal being, and he could regrow with the help of seeds from his pumpkin head even if he was killed off. Conclusion. While Conan has faced several powerful villains ranging from Thulsa Doom to Queen Taramis, he has almost always emerged victorious against them. The barbarian warrior often found himself in a tight spot due to these villains, who also put up a good fight and laid out elaborate themes to defeat Conan. Nevertheless, Conan always got the better of them and proved his power and strength time and again. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.